Calvin gestured. What is it? I don't like it. Watch, Mrs. Whatsit commanded. It was a shadow. Nothing but a shadow. It was not even as tangible as a cloud. Was it cast by something? Or was it a thing in itself? The sky darkened. The gold left the light, and they were surrounded by blue. Blue deepening until where there had been nothing but the evening sky, there was now a faint pulse of star, and then another, and another, and another. There were more stars than Meg had ever seen before. The atmosphere is so thin here, Mrs. Whatsit said, as though in answer to her unasked question. But it does not obscure your vision as it would at home. Now look. Look straight ahead. Meg looked, and the dark shadow was still there. It had not lessened or dispersed with the coming of night. And where the shadow was, the stars were not visible. What could there be about a shadow that was so terrible that she knew there had never been before or ever would be again anything that would chill her with a fear that was beyond shuddering, beyond crying or screaming, beyond the possibility of comfort? Meg's hand holding the blossoms slowly dropped, and it seemed as though a knife gashed through her lungs. She gasped, but there was no air for her to breathe. Darkness glazed her eyes and mind, but as she started to fall into unconsciousness, her head dropped down into the flowers, which she was still clutching, and as she inhaled the fragrance of the purity of her mind and body revived, and she sat up again. The shadow was still there, dark and dreadful. Calvin held her hand strongly in his, but she felt neither strength nor reassurance in his touch. Beside her a tremor went through Charles Wallace, but he sat very still. He shouldn't be seeing this, Meg thought. This is too much for a little boy, no matter how different and extraordinary a little boy. So this black substance, this black thing, seems to be thick, tangible, but it seems to be evil itself, and they can feel it. Calvin turned, rejecting the dark thing that blotted out the light of the stars. Make it go away, Mrs. Whatsit. Make it go away. It's evil. Slowly the great creature turned around so that the shadow was behind them, so that they saw only the stars unobscured, the soft throb of starlight on the mountain, the descending circle of the great moon swiftly slipping over the horizon. Then, without a word from Mrs. Whatsit, they were traveling downward, down, down. When they reached the corona of clouds, Mrs. Whatsit said, "You can breathe without the flowers now, my children." Silence again. Not a word. It was as though the shadow had somehow reached out with its dark power and touched them so that they were incapable of speech. When they got back to the flowery field, bathed now in the starlight and moonlight from another, smaller, yellower, rising moon, a little of the tenseness went out of their bodies, and they realized that the body of the beautiful creature on which they rode had been as rigid as theirs. Baby, disuda? Sabaki? With a graceful gesture, it dropped to the ground and folded its great wings, and Charles Wallace was the first to slide off. "Mrs. Who? Mrs. Which?" he called, and there was an immediate quivering in the air. Mrs. Who's familiar glasses gleamed at them. Mrs. Which appeared too, but as she had told the children, it was difficult for her to materialize completely. And though there was the robe and peaked hat, Meg could look through them to the mountain and stars. She slid off Mrs. Whatsit's back and walked rather unsteadily after the long ride over to Mrs. Which. "That dark thing we saw," she said. "Is that what my father is fighting?" And there's the end of the chapter. So the dark thing, we can think of it as evil. So in the Bible, we have evil. In this world, we have evil. And this dark thing basically is something that if you give in to it, if you let it take over, it will take you over. And it could be a force of evil. It could be like entering the demonic realm. And so the black thing is something that even when you see it, it makes you feel terrible. But this is what they have to fight. And this is what all of the great heroes of antiquity have always been fighting, from Moses to David to Paul to Jesus Christ. So guys, that's the end of the chapter. I'll see you for the next chapter, and Fortinbras will always be here to help us fend off the black thing.
Bye.
See you guys.